What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to create a menu, including using a button class for your menu buttons inside the Pygame module using Python. So I've recently been rolling out a lot of Pygame tutorials, especially like how to do specific things inside of Pygame. And I've been getting a lot of feedback on some of the videos saying what kind of things that we'd like to see more of. And menus has come up several times. So I figured for this week's video, that'd be a good one to talk about. And it's going to kind of include some of the using a class of buttons that we talked about in a recent video. So if you haven't checked that one out already, we'll cover most of the concepts here, but a little bit quicker. So I'll try to leave a card to it on this video. You can go and check out the how to create a button class video if you want to start there. Otherwise, we're just going to cover it pretty quickly in this video. So before we go too far, if you like this video, have any questions on what you saw, or want to request something in a future video, be sure to drop a comment letting me know, leave a like on this video, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I really want to grow this channel. I want to do more topics, more programming languages, and roll out more videos every week. So if you love the content here and you want to help me grow, be sure to check out my Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description below. Huge shout out to Dale T. He's my first Patreon supporter and someone who's been leaving a ton of useful feedback and supporting the channel for a very long time. So thank you very much, Dale. Now let's get into the full menus tutorial in Pygame. All right, so to show using menus in Pygame, we're going to set up a Pygame game window really quickly, and I do this so much that a lot of you who have been around the channel for a while are probably sick of it, so I'm going to go as quick as I can but still explain what we're doing. So as always, you need to import the Pygame module. If you don't have it installed, run pip, install the Pygame module, do pygame.init. That'll really let you use kind of all the built-in Pygame functionality from there on. And then pick a width and a height. You don't necessarily need to put them in variables, but it almost always comes in handy if you do. And then do screen equals pygame.display.setMode, and then give it in square brackets your width and height variables, and that's just defining the window. One more thing that I like to do just here in the beginning with the display is do pygame.display.setCaption, because the default just says like Pygame window, and so here's where you give your game a title. So I'll just say menus tutorial, but I'm assuming you're building an actual game, not just a tutorial for menus. Anyways, so then after that, pick a frame rate. 60 is pretty normal FPS for your game. And then I like to set up the timer here in the beginning that's actually going to control how fast the game moves. And to do that, it's just pygame.time.clock, just like that. And then that's really all we need to do initially. I guess let's do a font as well. Anytime you're going to have text, and since we're doing a menu, we're obviously going to have text. Set up a font in the beginning. It's pygame.font.font, just like that, with the second font capitalized. And then free sans bold.ttf comes built in. It's pretty standard. And then you give a font size of 24. So you may need to import a TTF file if you don't have one in your game, but this should come with any Windows, and I believe also Mac installs of Python and PyCharm in modern installs. Okay. So to get the game set up, the next thing we need to do is create just kind of a main game loop where we set this variable run equal to true, and then we say while run. So while we're running, let's screen.fill, and we're going to just give it a background color, and I'm going to say light blue so it's pretty clear what's the background and what's the menu once we have a pop-up menu. And then we'll do timer.tick at the frame rate, so that FPS we defined. And then the next thing to really do is figure out how to make this so it's not an infinite loop, because right now there's nothing that's going to make run false, which means the program is going to essentially stall your computer as soon as you boot it up. So to do that, we just do for event in pygame.event.get, and then we're going to say if event.type, just like this, is equal to and then the built-in pygame.quit all caps, which is the red X button that'll come as a default in your Pygame window. And so if we press that button, we want to set run equal to false. And then the last thing we need to do is come down outside of that for event loop and say pygame.display.flip, which is going to put all of our visual elements on the screen. And then even outside of that, we say pygame.quit, which means which means the run variable has now been set equal to false. So we exit this while loop and then we quit out of the application. So this now, if we run it, if we did everything right, we should just get a 500 by 500. Yep, light blue background square with menus tutorial as the title. Okay, so that's just kind of the bare minimum we had to do to get the menu set up now, or the game set up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new variable called main menu, and to start I'm going to set equal to false. And now we're going to kind of set up some logic in our main game loop to handle whether or not we want to display the menu. And it's obviously when we boot up, we'll say the menu won't automatically be open. You may want the menu to open first thing. All you have to do then is just initially set the menu equal to true. But what we'll say is we'll come down and we'll basically say if main menu, so if that variable we just made is true, then we'll make this function that we haven't defined yet, but we'll run this function called draw menu. But then else, so main menu is not true, we'll say then just draw our game, or you could say draw main or draw, you know, whatever. I'm going to call it game because you're using Pygame. I'm going to assume you're making a game. Anyways, we're going to do it that way, and now we're going to come up here and we're going to define those two functions. So we're going to define def draw game, and then for now I'm just going to press pass, or type in pass, so that I can just define the functions, and then later we'll come back and fill them in, just so that I don't forget to make either of these. Okay, so now we have draw game and draw menu, and those two are going to be what puts different things on the screen based on whether or not the menu is active. Alrighty, so let's come into draw game first, since we just said that menu is going to be false when the game first boots up. And so basically all I want to put on the main game window right now, because I'm not showing you how to make a specific type of game, I'm just showing you how to make a menu. So let's just put on the main screen when the menu is not popped up, let's just make a button that's going to be a menu button, okay? And so to do this, menu button, you know, we've done buttons a few times on this channel, and we've done it where it's just like pygame.draw.rect. And then, you know, we define a rectangle, we draw it, and then we handle whether or not the button has been clicked. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the first button kind of like that. But then what I want to do is I want to put that into a class, because obviously inside the menu we're going to have a bunch of buttons. So we want this class to kind of handle menu buttons. So let's just start with the draw game function, and let's say that the menu button is equal to pygame.draw.rect, and we'll put this rectangle on the screen, and to start we will make it light gray. And then let's see, we want this to be a rectangle, so we need to give it an X position, a Y position, and then we also need to give it a width and a height. And so for this button, we'll say X position and Y position is like 230 and then like 450, because we want it to be kind of far to the right and bottom right of the screen. That's a good place to put a button. And then I think for width, what'll look good is just make it like 260, so pretty wide because we're putting text on it, and then 40. It doesn't need to be that tall. Okay, and then let's say we'll make it solid, so we'll do 0, and then we'll make it a rounded rectangle like that. So we'll give it a radius on the corners of 5. All right, so that's good for that. And now I like to do this. You guys have probably seen it if you've followed the channel for a while. I like to give like a border. So we did that first one was dark gray. Now we're going to do the exact same rectangle and just give it a border edge like width of 5 and make it dark gray. So this is going to give you like a neat, you know, light gray rectangle with a dark gray border, which is why dark gray has to come second. It's getting drawn over top of the first one. Okay, and now let's put some text in here. Let's just say text is equal to, and for this button, we want to say like enter main menu. And so to do like a string that you want drawn on the screen, you do font.render and then the text that you want. And so this will say main menu because this is a button you press to make the menu pop up. And then you give it this anti-alias, which is always true. I don't actually know what happens if it's false. I could try sometime, but it's just true. And then the color you want the text to be, which is black. And then we're going to draw it on the screen. So we'll say screen.blit. And then we want it to be pretty close to the X and Y position, this like 230, 450. I guess we'll want to scoot it a little bit to the right and then a little bit down so that it's not touching the border. So we'll just go 15 right and like 7 down. Oops, that's just the coordinates. You have to start by telling it what text to draw on the screen. Okay, so all I did now is I made this function, draw game, which is going to, if it'll let me run it. So now you see we've got this main menu button in the lower right. It's okay, we have a little extra space. You can play around with the style if you want, but so we're drawing this button. It's not doing anything yet. But we're drawing the button, and now we need to check if we click on the button to actually set main menu equal to true. And to do that, we're just going to do it. There's a pretty easy built-in way to do it now because we have this menu button that we just made, and we need to check if it collides with a point. And the point we want to check is if the mouse position collides with it. So we'll say if menu button dot collide point with, and then there's this built-in Pygame has this built-in pygame.mouse.getPause, and this is going to give you an X and Y coordinate of the position of your mouse cursor. And so this is going to give you a true false. This menu button.collide point mouse.getPause is going to give you a true false, but we also need to check if the left button is being clicked. So I'm going to say and pygame.mouse.getPressed, and getPressed is a function that's going to give you a list of three true falses. So it goes left button, scroll wheel button, middle button, and then right button. So those 3 values, pygame.mouse.getPressed is giving you true or false, 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 or true, false, false, whatever. It's giving you the status of your mouse buttons, and we just want to check the left one. So what we're saying here, really, to break it down, is if our mouse cursor is over the menu button and the left button is clicked. And if those are both true, then we want to say menu equals true. And then we'll say else menu equals false. And now let's return menu. Okay, and so we obviously didn't set this up to be looking for anything, but what we'll say here is main menu is equal to draw game. So now, if we click the main menu button, we're going to have the menu, or if we click the main menu button initially on the main screen, main menu is going to become true, but we're not currently drawing anything in menu. So to fix that, let's just put like a black rectangle on the screen so we can tell it worked. So pygame.draw.rect screen black, we want it to be a black rectangle, and then we'll make it like a pop-up. So we'll put it at position 100 100, and then we'll make it 300 300, so it won't fill the screen. And this will actually be really cool just to show like a pop-up black rectangle when we click the button. All right, so let's test that. Okay, so now we have the main menu button down here, and when my mouse is over the button and I left click, so I'm going to do that now. Okay, I get this black rectangle, and that's cool. That's going to be what we use as our pop-up menu. So now we want to go ahead and draw what's in the menu. And the first thing I'll do, just so we can bounce back and forth between the two, is I'm going to basically copy what we just did, the menu button in game, and I'm going to put it on the menu. So we'll say this is going to be the exit menu button now. So we're in the menu, and instead of a button that we want to get to the main menu with, we want to exit the menu. But I'm still going to call it menu button. We're still going to return it. And so we're still going to have this main menu equals. The only difference is now if you click on the button, we're going to set menu equal to false. Otherwise, we want it to be equal to true. And so essentially what we're saying is now the same button that we put on the main screen that should let you enter the menu needs to be the button that lets us exit the menu. But since we made that pop up in kind of like a different space, we also want to change the X and Y coordinates for them. So I think the exit button we'll put a little bit to the right. Let's see. Let's do 120 should be about in the middle of the menu pop up that we have, and then 350 should be pretty close to the bottom of it. So let's do it that way. 120, 350, and then this would become 135, 357. All right, I tried to do that pretty quick because we've got a lot to cover in this video, but let's go ahead and take a look. So hopefully now we have a button that looks just like the main menu button on the main screen, but now it'll be on our menu and it'll say exit menu instead of main menu. So let's just test it. Okay, main menu, we're going to click the button. All right, now we have a pop-up and we have this button that lets us exit menu. All right, so that's pretty sweet. We now can go back and forth between the main menu and exiting the menu. So that's great. That's the basics of it. But now it's obviously not a very useful menu if you just have the ability to open it and then close it. Like that doesn't do anything productive for you. And so now we're at a point where I want to do something where we set up a button class for these buttons so that we can have a bunch of buttons on the menu, handle all of their commands. And we don't have to have this same block of text like 10 times. Like it's already inefficient because we have this same 10 lines of code basically copied right here with minor adjustments. So let's go ahead and set up a button class. And to do this, again, I'm going to go a little bit faster than I ordinarily would because I just did a video on how to create a class for buttons in Pygame. But essentially type the word class, type the name of your class with a first letter caps. That's the best like standard format. And then you always are going to define this initialize function at the beginning of your classes. And a class, just to talk briefly about it, is any block of code that you want to apply to a bunch of items in your code because you have so many like objects that are going to do very similar things with maybe only minor differences. So like a button, we always are going to want to draw it. It's okay. It's always going to have text. It's always going to get clicked. It's always going to do something when it gets clicked. So grouping together these kinds of functions so we only have to write the code once is really a great way to do it. And so we're going to make these really simple buttons. So all we're going to pass in is the button text and the position of the button. And we're going to make everything else built in. So the first thing you want to do is make these self.text, self.position variables that you're going to use inside of your function so you don't reference those master functions throughout the rest of the thing. And then let's take that position and let's define the rectangle here so that we have a variable for our rectangle as we go throughout. So we'll say self.button, the actual button, is going to be equal to pygame.rect.rect. And then we're going to say that when we pass in the position, it'll be an X and Y coordinate. So we'll say self.pos 0, the X coordinate, and then self.pos y, or 1, the y coordinate. And then we give it a second tuple, which is how wide and how tall. And we've been using 260/40 for our buttons. So we will do that here as well. Now we're going to define how to draw the button inside of the function. And I'm just going to come down and I'm going to grab these 4 here. Because that's what we're doing is we're drawing a button. So instead of calling it menu button, I'm just going to say btn equals pygame.draw.rect. And then instead of these 4 arguments here, I can just say self.button because we've already defined the rectangle argument. So I can say that there, and then I can also replace this here. Uh-oh. There we go. Nope. Man, I'm struggling. Self.button, copy, paste. There we go. And now we can still leave it like text like this, but now we want this also to be relative to the self.position x and y arguments. And so we'll say self.position x coordinate plus 15, and then self.y coordinate plus 7 is what we've been doing. But so now just this draw self function. So now I should be able to instead come down and say, let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to say button is equal to button. Actually, I should probably not use the same little temporary name I gave it. So I'll say button is equal to button, and then we have to give it an x and y coordinate, and I actually forget what we made these x and y coordinates. 234, 50. Okay, so let's do it like this. So to use this class, I'm going to say button equals, and then the name of my class, which is capital B button, and I need to give it the 2 arguments that we said we'd give it. So first is the text, and I'm going to say main menu. And then the second is the x and y position, and I'm going to say 230, 450. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of these 4 lines of text and instead just say button.draw. And now you can see we were checking the button's collision, so we need a function to also check if it was clicked. So we're going to make a function and say define check clicked, and so the same thing, it's always going to pass in self. That's passing in all the parameters associated with self. And all we're going to do is basically take these exact lines of code. So that's why setting it up once was okay outside. We didn't really waste any time. And now instead of if menu button, we're just going to say if self button collides with the mouse and the mouse left click is being pressed, then instead of menu equals true, we're just going to return true. Otherwise, we're going to return false. And you don't need equal signs anymore. So now this check clicked function for the button is going to tell you whether or not the button's being clicked. So what we can do is instead of returning menu, we can just return button dot check clicked, just like that. Because what we were doing before is we were setting menu true or false based on whether or not that button was being pressed. Well, now this function check clicked is going to tell us true or false based on whether the function is being clicked. So we just took like 8 lines of code and turned it into 3 lines of code by drawing this class, or defining this class. But obviously defining the class took a lot of code as well. So it really only starts becoming worth it, I guess, if you want to say that, okay, well now menu button is equal to our button class inside the menu, and we give it those arguments that we need to give it. So 12350 is going to be the x and y. Let me get rid of the rest of this stuff. And the text for this one will say exit menu, like that. And now I can get rid of all of these, and I can say menu button dot draw, and then I can say return return menu button dot check clicked, just like before. Although actually this is exit menu, so I want to return the opposite of check clicked. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, you can think of it this way, like menu button dot check clicked. If it's true, that means we want to exit the menu, which means essentially if this is checked, we want to say menu is equal to false if. So I'm describing this really bad. Sorry, I've been on vacation for 2 weeks. I'm trying to get back in the swing of things. So we're basically saying if the menu button is clicked, then we want to set menu equal to false. So it's because we're inside the menu and we're checking whether or not we want to exit the menu. So it's essentially by adding this not, we're inverting whatever it is. So if the button's not clicked, we want to leave the menu up. If the button is clicked, we want to exit the menu. But now hopefully you can see how much these two just got simplified by setting up the class. So I'm just going to run it real quick because that was a lot of code. And you can see our menu still works just like it did, except now it doesn't say exit menu. So let's take a look. It looks like I didn't use the text properly. Yeah, inside of our class, you guys probably caught it because you're smarter than me. Instead of main menu, we want self.text to be the text that we draw right there. And we don't actually need this btn equals either. I don't know why I had that. All right, so yeah, there we go. Now it says exit menu, and it's working really well. So let's go ahead and just add a few additional buttons in our menu. So this is where it really starts getting useful. So now we're going to just I'll add 3 buttons. I'll say, button 1, button 2, and button 3 equals button, and I will just call them button 1 is going to be the text that shows up on the screen, button 2, and button 3, and we're going to keep them all at 120, so we'll put them in the same like X position, but now we're going to adjust their Y position. So let's do like 180, we'll do every 60 pixels, like 180, 240, and 300, like that. And so now if I just run that, it's not going to do anything, but if I come down and I do button 1.draw, button 2.draw, and button 3.draw, okay, those 6 lines that I just threw in here are equivalent to like 60 lines of code if we were typing this out every time. So you're starting to see hopefully the value of having a class for your menu buttons. But now you can see I have these 3 buttons on here, but I'm not doing anything with the check clicked, so it's not doing anything to the menu. If you don't like the style of it, give me a break. I'm giving you a tour on the functionality. You can play with the style on your own. Okay, so let's take a look at how we would actually use all 4 of those buttons, but still not complicate our draw menu function too much. So I'm going to create this command variable, and I'm going to set it equal to 0, right? When it's when the function it first runs, we're going to say, okay, there's no command, so command is equal to 0. Now what I'm going to say is instead of returning this, I'm going to return the command variable, because you can only click on one button at a time, right? So what I'll say is menu button dot check clicked, and I'll say if menu button dot check clicked, then we'll set command equal to 1. And I'm going to do basically this for all of the buttons. So Control V, Control V, Control V, oops, tab, Shift tab. So now I'm going to say if button 1 is clicked, then we'll set the command equal to 2. If button 2 is clicked, command equal to 3, and then button 3. If it's going to bother your OCD, you guys, that the button 3 does command 4, etc., just make menu button command 4. That doesn't matter. Basically, what I'm trying to show is now we have 4 buttons inside of a function that are referring to inside of a class, but it all comes back to this command variable. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to come down here, and instead of saying main menu is equal to draw menu, we're going to say command is equal to draw menu. But then I'm going to do this. So I'm going to say if you clicked any of those buttons, so if command is greater than 0, then we're going to set main menu equal to false. And then if you clicked 2, 3, or 4, we're going to display what button was clicked on the screen. But if all you did was press exit, we're not going to display it on the screen. So to do that, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say if command is greater than or equal to 1. So that means you press button 2, 3, or 4. Or I guess button 1, 2, or 3, which does command 2, 3, or 4. Yeah, this is getting confusing. I shouldn't have done it that way, but too far now. Then we'll just say text is equal to, and we'll make this a formatted string, and we'll say button and then curly brackets command -1 because I added 1 to it was clicked, and a little exclamation mark for some style. And I don't know why I'm just putting the text like this. You have to do font.render like that. So font.render, button was clicked, give it that true, and then we'll say it's black text, and then we are going to do screen.blit our text, and let's just put it on the screen around 100 and then 200 for now, just sort of in the middle of the screen. So what you're going to see now, I hope, is no matter what button you pressed, it's going to do something. It's going to do something different. And actually, I'll call this menu command just to stop it from being confused with thinking well, that's the same name inside the function and outside of the function. Okay. But what you will notice is we have to define menu command in the very beginning then, because we are going to refer to it before we open the menu up. So just initialize it and make it 0 in the very beginning. And then let's go ahead and run this. So now all of the functions in here should do something different. So I'll just hit exit menu. Oh, button 0 was clicked. Oh, it's because I did greater than or equal to 1. I wanted greater than 1. All right, let's try that. All right, so main menu, exit menu, doesn't do anything. Button 1 was clicked. Button 2 was clicked. Button 3 was clicked. Okay, exit menu, it goes away. So basically that's it. I think the link to the GitHub where I give you this code in the description probably has some additional style, like I might have added some green color and some borders, and maybe my logo is on there. But this is all you need to know for the menu, basically. Like now you have this information in the outside world in your main game loop of what buttons are being pressed. And so obviously this is kind of me saying I'm not really doing anything with these buttons. I'm just showing you how to get feedback from a menu in Pygame. So if you have any questions about what kind of the logical next steps with this would be, or how to make a menu that does something specific, again, just let me know in the comments below. If any level of my Patreon subscribers get like direct messaging access to there, and I'm very responsive there as well. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Feel free to check out the rest of the channel. I do a ton of Pygame, Python, and other software tutorials there. And let me know what you want to see in a future video. So thank you guys so much for the support. And until next time, bye.